Starting to think that first world problems are more important than third world problems. For the longest time, I've been thinking that, first world problems are not really that important. They for the privileged, they're for people that are spoiled. What do I mean by first world problems? I mean, if you study what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a triangle. You can find it on Google. At the bottom is what he calls physiological and safety and security needs. Physiological is the basics, food, shelter. When it comes to safety and security, of course, rest, warmth. Those are physiological and safety and security are right at the bottom. After those come your psychological needs, belonging somewhere, being loved, etc. And then self-esteem, getting awards and someone saying you've done a good job. And then at the highest level is what's called self-actualization. That's when you've transcended your physiological and your psychological needs and you are now looking in purpose. How can I serve the world? How can I leave a great legacy? And people normally say the billionaires of this world, maybe even the Nelson Mandela's, Mother Teresa's of this world are people that have self-actualized. It's people that are not just chasing money and wealth and basic needs, but people that are going beyond those things. When I speak about first world problems, I'm speaking about self-actualization and psychological, more importantly, the psychological needs where people want to be loved, people want some kind of recognition, people want to belong to a community. And I'm starting to realize that those needs are more important than the physiological or the basic needs or the third world needs. If you look at a first world like the United States of America, like Germany, like Japan, like South Korea, and then you compare it to third worlds, places like Sudan, places like Malawi, poorer places. My assumption has always been the poorer places are more important. Let's bring it a bit closer to home. If I look at a business and I look at the business owner or the farm owner, the person who's rich and who gets to run this whole enterprise, I always thought they are not as important as the workers, the bulk, the population, etc. I was like, these people, the masses, are more important than this leader. But I'm realizing that it's the leader. It is the first world country. It is your first world psychological problems that are more important. When you look at the world we live in today, a lot of children are depressed. A lot of children are dying, committing suicide. A lot of people end up with alcohol abuse, drug abuse. They're lost. They're confused. And in my head, and a lot of other people's heads, it's like, but you guys are spoiled. It's because you grew up privileged. You don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from, where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep. If you look at the children that come from poverty, from huts, from shacks, those kids don't get depressed and commit suicide. Yet they're struggling with the basics. They wear clothes that are torn. They live in dirt. They don't have a good education. But they seem to be made of stronger, more resilient stuff, is the assumption. And when you look, I'm going to make these examples and I apologize for using them. But you look at someone like Ricky Rick, who committed suicide. You look at someone like WHP, who committed suicide. You look at some of these big celebrities. I don't know if it was Selena Gomez or Ariana Grande, one of the two, who was depressed and had to go to rehab. Similar thing happened to Kid Cudi. You listen to like these celebrities and people on social media, I'm so depressed, I'm struggling with mental health issues, I have to go for therapy. And for people that are poor, people that are struggling with the basic, they don't need that. They're like, kill themselves over a girl, over a heartbreak. This guy's depressed because he didn't win an award. These psychological needs, if they are not taken care of, they destroy any physiological needs you may have. Because you may have food, you may have a home, you may have your basics and clothing, but if your mind is not okay, you will take your life. Sadly. Again, let's go back to the analogies I made. If the boss, if the farm owner is not okay and his farm is not doing well, all these farm workers who we think or we thought were more important, if the farm worker is not okay, the business collapses, the farm collapses, and these people lose their jobs. If the business owner, the CEO, the founder of the company is not doing okay, and they maybe die, their vision, their passion, their leadership style goes with them. And this company that was dependent on this person collapses. And these people all lose their jobs. If your president, if your king of your nation is not a visionary, is not strict, is not strong, the country collapses. All these masses, you look at someone like a Cyril Ramaphosa, before him you had a Jacob Zuma, before him you had a Kgalema Motlanthe Thabo Mbeki, and then a Nelson Mandela. This is obviously before F.W. de Klerk. If those people are not great, it doesn't matter who are the ministers, doesn't matter who are the members of parliament, and the rest of us 60 million South Africans today, we suffer. So it is actually really important to take off that first world problem. If in America, Germany, Japan, South Korea, France, etc., if they are not doing well, if they are not more thoughtful, considerate of the rest of the world, specifically the third world suffers. Look at what colonization did. If you've got first world countries that are going around plundering, oppressing, exploiting third world countries, the third world countries suffer. I don't know if you're understanding me. If your mind is not okay, if you're not taking care of, am I in a healthy relationship? Do I have a good relationship with my family? Am I working in a healthy work environment? Am I satisfied with who I am? Do I understand my identity? Do I know who my parents are? Have I got a good religious foundation? If you do not resolve those things, you won't eat well. You will go and eat junk. You will go and drink alcohol and abuse it. You will take drugs. Your dad is not around, but you guys are millionaires and you're living in a very fancy neighborhood, but you're not well upstairs and you're like, I miss my dad. He's always traveling the world. My mom, I miss my mom. She's never okay. And you end up intoxicating yourself with trash and you die. And it could be physical trash, it could be psychological trash, where you're obsessed with porn, where you're obsessed with watching violent content, where you're obsessed with being in spaces that are not healthy for you. You get depressed, you commit suicide. First world problems, beginning to believe, are more important than your third world problems. You may be making good money in the city, but if you're not fixing the relationships with your family, immediate and extended, if you're not finding out who your mother and father are and building decent relationships with themselves, if you're not spending time to travel through the concept of African spirituality, European spirituality and religion, and all these other things, if you do not take time to understand your history, if you do not meditate and get to know yourself, if you do not know what makes you happy and what makes you sad, it doesn't matter if you've got a good job and you're earning well, if you drive a nice car. We're going to find you one day hanging from the ceiling because there's turmoil inside you. You have got first world problems, and they are more important than your third world problems. The third world problems are important. If we can solve the first world problems, even as privileged people, if I can fix my problems, I become so much healthier, and I can then go and help the poor and the needy and the struggling and the undereducated and miseducated and the unskilled in my communities and uplift them. But it requires me to solve my first world problems. Penuel the Black Pen. Just some thoughts.